Welcome in the latest episode of the Bet in the Pitch Soccer Podcast. This is Europa League edition. I'm your host, Real_G Warner, across all social media platforms. It is late night with Real_G Warner. It is now Thanksgiving here in the United States. Happy Thanksgiving to all of you, and let's win some money. Before we get into all that, we've got to drop the record here. We're 11, 5 and 1, 69%. Nice. So far this season on our best bets. I'm forever behind, but catching up gradually, trying to not miss any of the soccer action out there. So I'm the most informed of anyone that is covering this sport across any podcast, whatever platform. Speaking of, you can find me on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. It's called Betting the Pitch. You can also look for on YouTube at the Real_G Warner. Same on Instagram at the Real_G Warner. And if you're checking out Patreon, patreon.com/says Real_G Warner for all my plays across all sports, including this just marathon of college basketball, European soccer, American football, everything going on all this week. And we're trying to keep everybody informed as much as possible while turn up the ROIs. So we're going to start in Europa League. The way we do the best bet on this episode is I'm going to go my favorite from the early window, the 12:45 Eastern time, 11:45 Central time, 6:45 generally across Europe. Early window of matches in Europa League, and then the late window at 9 p.m. or so across Central Europe. Other than that, I guess it's time to get into it. So let's do it. We'll start with the first matchup on the list, and that is Roma hosting Michelin. So Roma are one of the strongest clubs in Italy, one of the most famous, prominent, all those sort of things. They brought in a really offensive manager to make a defensive team score goals, and that was lauded by most. I thought it was going to be a great hire. It hasn't really happened so far. So I'm still waiting to see goals being scored from Roma. Therefore, I want to be against them when they're a bigger favorite than I made. So they're currently 1.25 goal favorites. The Michelin total is 3 in this one, just all the way to under. Um, I don't think I'm playing under 2 3/4 in this one, and I will be waiting to see where this juice goes. Does It's a lot higher than the number I made. I don't know if we're expecting Roma to break out of a slump here. Michelin are certainly not a defense only type of minnow, as you'd call it in Europa League. They spent some time in the Champions League, a Danish club that certainly shouldn't be looked down upon, but definitely have fewer resources than Roma do. I think under 3 is my biggest interest here, but the spread's bigger than the 1 goal I was expecting. So it's juice at the moment, but those are the two ways I'm leaning in these, I guess, opener of, or at least first listed of the early matchups. Moving next to alphabetical order, Aston Villa, 2 goal favorites to Young Boys Bern of Switzerland. Total on this one is 3.5, and it's just pretty heavily to under right now. So Aston Villa have been a great defensive team under Unai Emery since he got there. Left Sevilla, left well, Arsenal way back when. But anyway, I think left Villarreal for Aston Villa is, I think, more accurate in his trajectory. Young Boys Bern have been in Champions League. They're on my famed or infamous Champions League pool roster last year. I don't think they got a single point in Champions League. So dropping down to Europa League, got a fair amount of respect in their opener, lost to Panathinaikos at home. And then really, I'm not impressed. The market's clearly not impressed, making them a 2 goal underdog and the total at 3.5 for a team that doesn't really score goals much, and that's Aston Villa. So not a lot of expectation for this to be close. Those numbers are both bigger than I made them. Probably strongest lean is to under 3.5, but I'm not so sure that I really want to get too involved with Young Boys Burn at this point, just because I feel like they've done well in Switzerland specifically, and then really have not done much since then, unfortunately. So I'll probably stay on the sidelines for this one, but we'll end up seeing what happens with this matchup, of course, as we all with all of them. Moving next to Fenerbahce hosting Ferencvaros to F's in the chat right here. Fenerbahce of Turkey, a 3/4 goal favorite with all the juice. Ferencvaros, the Hungarian side from Budapest, they are like I just said, where they're located. Total in this one is 2 3/4, and it is juiced pretty heavily to over right now. And I think that's based on a Fenerbahce side, and one just kind of my general theme or rule with Turkish clubs is that they have big names from all across Europe, and they don't defend because they're either on later parts of their career or less interested in it, or maybe the Super League just wants to see high scoring games. So that makes a pretty big favorite a little bit awkward, just because if you're going to give 3/4 of a goal with a lot of juice, potentially climb into a 1 goal favorite, that not only requires you to score goals, but you also got to keep them from going in on the other side. I think Ferencvaros are one of those clubs in Europe that don't get a lot of respect very often. I think they're pretty talented, and I think they also have a goal scorer up front in Barmavaga, who's just one of the. He's really shown himself on the Hungarian national side as a forever striker, but has been really good for this club team. Hasn't really moved around other places, so I'm fairly interested in seeing some goals from him in this one, or at least some goal opportunities, goal threats. I think at this point, I'm very interested in fading Fenerbahce, who I feel like have been getting a lot of respect in their numbers. I'm not just not sure I believe that they deserve them so far. So Ferenc Faros, I love the right now the three-quarters of a goal, but we'll certainly be waiting for one to pop before kickoff on in the early slate. Moving next to Feyenoord, they are hosting Celtic. Currently Feyenoord of Holland. They are three-quarter goal favorites with more juice on the home team. Celtic FC of Glasgow, Scotland. Their total is three, and it's juiced more to the under. So. Celtic are a really competitive side. It's going to be tough for them going into a really very difficult place to play, as all of the Holland venues seem to be. There's a lot more goals scored in those type of Dutch venues. I think a lot due to a big crowd and really no lead is safe for any visiting team, which does worry me. But the price is pretty right for an underdog here. And again, points like it's going to at least a juice will more likely move to one than half of a goal, and that's certainly I'll be holding out for. Celtic have made, I think, a great start to the season. You can argue that it's a lot been negatives towards their big Glasgow rival Rangers, who we'll get to later in this episode. But for now, for me, I think there's some interest for me in the underdog potentially playing a close game on the road in Holland. Move next to Lille, hosting Dinamo Zagreb of Croatia, Lille of France. Currently, Lille a one goal favorite with all the juice. Total in this one is two and three quarters, and it's juiced very heavily to over. So Lille are a goal scoring team. They've got a lot of talent. They've got a great manager, and they're taking on a club from a smaller nation, even though a lot of the French clubs are looked at as a smaller type of league, but still one of the top five in Europe, as I cover every weekend on the Betting Pitch on podcast, on Apple Podcasts, and on Spotify. I think at this point, I'm not really sure I want much to do with Dinamo Zagreb. I think they're more of a home team, and especially home underdog that I'd like to back. I think there could see some goals going in, unfortunately, and those little fire type of pyrotechnics behind the Lille red stained nets just really pissing me off. So I think that's probably one I stay away from. Still in this early window, Ludogorets are three-quarter goal underdogs at home in Bulgaria to Celta de Vigo of Spain. Total in this one is 2.5. It shoots very heavily to under, and that's certainly my strongest lean in this one. Ludogorets, I don't trust them to score goals. I don't really trust Celta though at this point. They've been struggling to balance the rigors of La Liga play, where they're usually in a relegation fight until last season. They finished in the Europa League. Now they're in Europe trying to balance losing a bunch of their talented studs, really, to bigger clubs in the Premier League and other clubs throughout, including Sevilla in Spain, who are worse than them and are not competing in Europe. But that's a different story. As for the Ludogorets, they are just going to really try to defend this whole time. That's what they do. So under 2.5 is my biggest interest in that matchup. Moving next to PAOK hosting Brand. Currently, PAOK a one goal favorite with all the juice to the newcomers on the European stage. So it was two and three quarters in this one, and it's juiced more to the over. PAOK have been spending a lot of money on their team for years, not really getting a lot from it. Nearly got relegated immediately and didn't even come close to qualifying last season. And then I think snuck into the knockout rounds. But they've spent a lot of money, and Brand have been really impressive. We're I thought pretty low on the likelihood to win, or at least shorter odds than expected to win Europa League based on a Europa League Champions League combined draft that I already referenced that I was going into this season. And I've been watching them throughout, and I didn't take them, and I've been kicking myself for it because they've been certainly performing so far. Now a big underdog could be even one and a quarter before kickoff based on where the juice suggests. So I'll be waiting on the Brand side. I don't know that PAOK has been that impressive to me. They had a good win at Lille, though had a huge 4-0 lead and won 4-3. So there is some history of them not holding on very well. Different story, of course, at home against a weaker club and as a bigger favorite, of course, but just things to think about when we're looking at this matchup. Next, we'll go to Porto hosting Nice as the Olympique Gymnastique Club de Nice will be heading to West Portugal for Porto, a little bit north of Lisboa. Currently, Porto one and a quarter goal favorites with almost all the juice. Total on this one is two and three quarters with almost all the juice to under. So Nice have not really looked like an under team for the few seasons that Frank Heiss have been there. Has been there. I guess he's a singular, but Porto as a big favorite seems like it doesn't really compute to me. They've certainly turned into a team that's looking to score goals and outscore you. I don't think that's the best plan, but it is a plan, and I think at this point I'm looking to be against them as much as possible. So the 1.25 goal is just gigantic compared to what I was expecting. We could get 1.5, and unless I see a ton of absences from Nice, I think I'm going to try to step in the rabbit hole that is backing a club that's been, I think, underperforming in Europe for seasons and potentially finding a good opportunity to exploit some of that with a big overpriced number. Move to the last matchup of the early window, and we'll get an ultimate best bet selection. We have Victoria Plzeň hosting Sport Club de Freiburg. Currently, Victoria Plzeň of Czechia. They are a quarter goal underdog as Freiburg head from Germany to the Czech Republic. Total in this one is 2.5, and it shoots very heavily to under. So Victoria Plzeň, I mean, smaller budget, of course, than the German Bundesliga side, but have been really talented. Have rode their luck up from the Conference League into the Europa League a couple straight seasons. Won at Roma early this year, so I'm pretty impressed. I don't ever really believe in Freiburg scoring goals, especially not away from home in this competition. So pretty interested in the home underdog as a quarter of a goal and also the under 2.5 in that matchup. So for the ultimate best bet, though, in this early window before we get the lates, I think I'm most tempted by Ludogorets Celta Vigo under 2.5 because I just frankly, I don't see goals coming in and just snuck in one of the real underscore G Warner across all social media platforms, yawns, as it is late night here on the East Coast of the United States with some pans hanging behind my head, pans in the chat. We'll now move to Bologna hosting Red Bull Salzburg in the late window of Europa League. A reminder, I will nominate a favorite from this late window and we will work it all in. Thank you for those of you that are here live. Feel free to throw in some comments. Um, but Bologna, 1.25 goal favorites right now to Salzburg. The over under is 2.75, and the juice is split both ways in this one, so no real indicator on where it will move. Salzburg have been probably one of the most disappointing clubs in the Europa League so far this season. Bologna have been awesome, I thought. And so it's a pretty rough matchup. The spread is much bigger than I expected, but I think based on the trajectories of these two, I'm just not really sure what much to do with anything here, to be frank. Moving next to Crvena Zvezda hosting FCSB. Crvena Zvezda, or in English, Red Star Belgrade of Serbia. They're hosting a Bucharest side that only goes by letters now for some reason. I don't know what changed all that. But Crvena Zvezda, a 1.25 goal favorite with more juice on the road team. Total in this one is 2.75, and it's just very heavily to over. So Crvena Zvezda's defense has always been questionable, mainly on the Champions League level, but are a big favorite here. So that makes me want to lean the other way. The problem is that does make me also question a big over-under total, which I feel like is something I'm certainly looking into, especially if we can get a 3. FCSB have been a side I've been looking to back a lot in this competition, but I've been a little bit scared to do it just based on budgetary things and thinking, well, if they spend so little on their players, how could they perform on this level? But I've been impressed, and I like the underdog, especially above a goal. But I think I like under 2.75 playing a low-scoring game against a Red Bull Salzburg defense. Excuse me, Red Bull Salzburg last name, a Red Star Belgrade defense that just really hasn't performed on higher levels against bigger budgets, and FCSB certainly are not one of those. Move next to Go Ahead Eagles hosting a VfB Stuttgart. Currently, Go Ahead Eagles 1.25 goal underdogs at home with all the juice. Total in this one is 3, and it's juiced more to over. So Stuttgart, goal scoring team from the Bundesliga, one of the biggest clubs, though had fallen on hard times, got relegated to the Schweizer Liga, and then fought their way back, and now are here in, or I guess we're in Champions League last year, survived for Europa League this season. They are certainly a better club. I think Go Ahead Eagles will have a big Dutch crowd behind them. They are just such a weak, talented, or weak budgeted side for this competition. That got a job in the at Wolfsburg in the German Bundesliga based on the overperforming last season. He didn't stick around very long, so maybe it was lightning in a bottle, and that's certainly a concern. With that said, home underdogs of more than a goal are always of interest to me, so I'll put that on my card, though I don't really want much to do with under, which does make my or limit my interest in a home underdog because if they need to score, I don't want to get in a goal scoring contest that makes the underdog and the underdog spread even smaller than it actually feels. Move next to Genk hosting Basel. Currently, Genk a half a goal favorite with more juice on the road visitor of Switzerland. Total in this one is 3, just pretty heavily to under right now, and that's the way I lean. Bigger number than I made. Basel have not really impressed me so far in this competition, which worries me about backing a road team that have not been very good. But they did start with a lot of German Bundesliga sides early in the season, so maybe I've been a little bit harsh. So I think is a big test to see who's going to move through. Move next to Nottingham Forest hosting Malmo of Sweden, Nottingham Forest of the English Premier League, and they are extremely overpriced naturally, as you would suspect. But 1 and 3/4 goals with all the juice right now, almost at Bet Online. Total is three. Juice is split both ways. I see a low scoring matchup because that is exactly how Nottingham Forest plays. That's what Sean Dyche does. Malmo have not been impressive, and that's why the number's so big. But you could say the same for Nottingham Forest's entire season. They're on third manager, and I don't really know how we get a number this big. I think under three is the stronger of my leans here, but lean to the side as well. Maccabi Tel Aviv then host Lyon. Currently, Tel Aviv, well, host is relative, I guess, because UEFA is still not playing games in Europe this season. Lyon are somehow outperforming against a transfer ban and a near relegation to Ligue 2 based on financial problems. Right now, Maccabi Tel Aviv 3/4 goal underdogs in the neutral home field, whatever we call it. Over under is 2.5 here, which is to the over, and I really have nothing that I want in this one besides Lyon, and they're a big favorite, not in their home stadium. Moving next to Panathinaikos hosting Sturm Graz. We have a Greek side hosting an Austrian one. Panathinaikos 3/4 goal underdogs at home with all the juice, or excuse me, Panathinaikos 3/4 goal favorites at home with all the juice. Total in this one is 2.5, and it's just slightly more to over, about 6 cents different at Bet Online. If you're looking for a new account there, please hit me up and I'll refer you, get you some free money over there at betonline.ag. But Sturm Graz, I mean, they've are a bigger underdog here than I expected. Would love to get a full goal of insurance. Panathinaikos, I thought were kind of disrespected in the opener on the road at Young Boys, went out and won. And then I think they've been starting to get a more appropriate valuation since. I think Sturm Graz is the only way I could really lean here. I'll be waiting for a full goal of insurance. Until we get that, I'll probably be on the sidelines. Now to one of the more dramatic matches here, at least based on goal spreads, my projections, and things of that nature. We have Rangers 1/4 goal underdogs at home to Sporting Braga of Portugal. Rangers of Glasgow, Scotland. Totals 2.5 in this one. Just more to the under, and just seeing Sporting Braga have been really unimpressive to me across Europe for many seasons now, and they're a favorite on the road at a really tough place to play. Yes, there's a lot of unhappy Rangers fans. We saw, I mean, literally the amount of interactions I had on one Rangers FC post about their manager, Russell Martin, earlier this season was hilarious. And he's moved on. I think Rangers FC are a big interest for me at a 1/4 goal underdog because they are a team that bands together. They hate their leadership, and those are big problems because unfortunately, in European soccer, you can see your home crowd actually hurt your team more than help it, which is so different than any American sport. With all that said, Sporting Braga as a road favorite is something I'd like to be against. So Rangers 1/4 goal will make it onto my list for a potential best bet as we head to the last matchup of the Europa League of this match day five. We have Real Betis, a 1.5 goal favorite at home against Utrecht. Currently 1.5 goals. The underdog is very, very juiced on that side. Total is 2 and 3/4, and it's juiced very heavily to over. So Real Betis have been scoring goals against everyone and anyone so far this season. They've been balancing Europa League and La Liga very well. They're got Champions League goals in La Liga, which they have not had for a long time. Maybe they said it, but never was realistic towards the end of season. So things have been going well. And Utrecht, another Dutch side that found their way into this competition, but have not played very well. I know because they're on my pool roster, unfortunately. And so I don't know that I really want much to do with fading Real Betis at home. They score goals. That's a scary thing for unders, and Utrecht have not really been competitive. So, and once goals go in, a bunch of them, unfortunately, teams stop caring, and then you see a lot more goals get shipped. So I think at this point, I'm probably laying off that one and staying as far away as possible as we come to the end of the soccer podcast. So we have a big day of the NFL recorded early on Monday this week, trying to get as down, I guess, in on potential line movement, things like that with A underscore Schnicker, and of course the how the Thanksgiving travel stuff for this week. But we have that out on this podcast network, Ben and Pitch Podcast, Apple Podcast, and on Spotify. 5-star reviews are huge for us. Comments will certainly help us in the search rankings. If we see anything of interest or just anything written at all, we will read it and you will hear it and we'll shout you out. So go ahead, throw a 5-star review in there. If you don't give a 5-star review, it's not worth it. So don't do that. But we'll take as many 5 stars and comments as we can. And subscribers on YouTube at the real underscore G Warner and on Instagram at the real underscore G Warner. And you can get all the reels, all the summaries, all the best bets in one place or either place you choose at the real underscore G Warner on YouTube and on Instagram. There is a college football podcast out there also covering the Thanksgiving week with Lante on the pregame.com podcast network. I'm still working out when we're doing the college basketball one, as there's a huge feast week that's already gone down, but we'll see. And then other than that, I think it's time for the ultimate best bet. So let's get into it. So from the early window, just want to make sure I didn't miss any comments. Oh, sound check positive. Thank you for Anderson. I know you're always here. Appreciate that. I'm not using the mic tonight. Didn't bring it on the plane. So, I guess it was more likely that things would work tonight. But thank you, as always, for checking in, Anderson Hernandez 9533. I appreciate that a lot. And I said I would shout people out. So here we are. For my best bet from the early window, let's go Ludogorets under 2.5 goals. In the late window, let's go Malmo under 3. So not expecting a lot of goals in either of those matchups. And I think the strongest, better best bet is the bigger number, Malmo under 3. They're heading to Nottingham Forest, one of the most conservative managers in all the Premier League, maybe all of the world, definitely all of the England, definitely all of the world. And so we're not seeing a lot of goals there. At least I'm not. Malmo are going to go in there and try to defend. They know they're a smaller budgeted side. They do have some Premier League history with Pontus Jansson, who was on Brentford and other teams way back when. But I think we see a low scoring game. I think it's exactly what Nottingham Forest want. It's what their manager wants. I think a 2-0 victory is certainly plenty with a safety to on a push coming later. And I think at this point, for me, I just don't see a lot of goals being scored. So we'll go under 3. Malmo visiting Nottingham Forest, the best bet on this episode. We'll see you all, I guess, down the stretch as we have another weekend podcast coming for soccer across Europe and everything in the world. So it's all been piled together into this one beautiful week.